Unity, I think, was one of the big things that has just stayed with us the whole time. And in those 20 years, we've watched the world become more divisive, more tribalistic. There's various things in life that still bring people together indiscriminately. And music now is possibly the last bastion of like unifying people. Once we started realizing that, I think we just started to take it even more and more seriously, which in one respect can lead us, as Bertrand Russell said, to a mental breakdown. But it does make us think really hard about what we're putting out into the world.
Please set me on fire. Please set me on fire.
On a quiet night, you can hear us set ourselves alight. Oh, let me transcend and be a flicker in your eyes. Wait for the spark.
Please set me on fire. Please set me on
Well, Rao, Chris and Rob met in primary school when they were 5.
Mm-hmm. Me and Chris would always just be mucking around writing music when we, from we were like 8 years old upwards. I remember him getting his first guitar, I think he just borrowed from his uncle or something. And we just, learnt like 3 chords and just we were playing Beatles covers, and he had a little tape player that he stole from his sister, and we just like do little recordings and things. And then I went off and lived in Scotland for a few years. And when I came back, when I was 12, 13, I was like adamant that I wanted to start a band. Me and Chris started writing music again. I remember hearing drums one day out the back window of my house, and I was like, we need a drummer. Who is this? And I was like literally just like following the sound of the drums. But it turned out it was actually a guy that went to my primary school. Ended up bumping into Rob in the supermarket, and I remember my dad like sort of pushing me for like, go on, ask him if he wants to be in a band. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, hi Rob, well, I haven't seen you in like 5 years, probably more than that. I was like, do you want to be in a band? I was like, yeah, that's how we started our first few bands. Eventually took on Rory in 2003, which was when Enter Shikari began.
Before I joined Enter Shikari, I had a drive. I was like, all I want to do is just play guitar in a band. I was so adamant on that. And I really struggled to find other musicians who wanted to do it. I mean, I used to jam with Rob and a couple of other friends. The couple of other friends weren't really into it. It's always like a drag to try and get them to band practice and stuff. I was just like desperate to like just play with people. And I remember when Rob asked me to audition for Enter Shikari, or Hybrid as they were called at the time, I just got a sense straight away. I was like, okay, these guys are on my level in how they feel about what they want to do. So even though we were like school kids, I was like, this is gonna, like, we're gonna keep at this. And I got a vibe from the very first rehearsal. This was gonna be something.
I write very instinctually, very emotionally. It's quite a solitary endeavor. It's sort of everything. It's the way I organize my thoughts on myself, on the world. It's reflection, it's catharsis. Often it's how I communicate, like especially when I started writing music. I was at home by myself whilst all the friends that I managed to stay in touch with were at school. I had nothing to do and no way of like communicating. So I just like wrote music and honed my songwriting skills in those 6 months. Not a lot's really changed since that. Yeah, it's everything, which became very viscerally noticeable during the pandemic when I stopped writing completely.
Listen, follow your heart, which is bad advice when it's been broken into. Now it's compromised. I've lost sight of what is real, and now you're going under. My eyes are bloodshot, and I've seen it all before. This moment won't stop with bloodshot. Through your lens, the wild is an eyesore. Field of vision, now it's compromised. I've lost sight of what is real. Oh, it's right there before your eyes, for all to see, the greatest of lies. Have you noticed I'm a hypnotist? Have you noticed how you're going under? My eyes are bloodshot, and I've seen it all before. This moment won't stop, and realize the wild is an eyesore. I can hear the echoes burning on the blood holes. I can see the future, I can hear it falling down. My eyes are bloodshot, and realize the world is an eyesore. My eyes are bloodshot, bloodshot. I don't wanna lose everything we got. This film, it won't stop, it won't stop.
My eyes are bloodshot. I've seen it all before. This film, it won't stop. Through your lens, the world is an eyesore. My eyes are bloodshot. And I've seen it all before. This film, it won't stop. And through your lens, the world is an eyesore. Hey!
It was scary not being able to write. For something that I've done forever. It was just like this gaping void in my life and a sense of like, oh, I'm like mid-30s, is that it? Are all my creative years behind me? Have I just like lost the ability to write music? It was really disorientating, really disconcerting. And it took me a long time to realize the various sort of reasonings of why it had happened. One of them being that we stopped playing shows, and I get a lot of my sense of purpose, my sense of like fuel as a songwriter from feeling that cyclical energy. A lot of it was like building up the confidence again. It wasn't just like writer's block for a few months. This was a year and a half. So it was just like this, I was having to work out who I was again. Like who am I if I'm not in Enter Shikari? Enter Shikari aren't playing shows and I'm not writing music, that we cease to exist. When we started to play shows again, we were very lucky really. We got to play the first festival after COVID in the UK. It was like a test event put on in conjunction with the government. And that was like a euphoric day. And so that was a very much like a slap round the face. This is what you've been missing. This is, it fueled me, but it still took a long time.
I think part of the reason that we've sort of stuck together for like the last 20 years is because there's no egos, there's no suppressing of ideas. Raoul will always be encouraging us to like bring stuff to the table. So it naturally becomes a collaborative thing. Raoul will always be like, oh, can you try something over this, do something over that?
I've experienced so many different, other ways of writing. I did a lot of like pop writing and kind of conveyor belt writing, industry stuff. It was almost quite soulless, It was very, very weird and so removed from what I consider songwriting to be. And so it was only after I'd experienced those other ways of doing it that I sort of, what I do became a bit more concrete and became a bit more like, okay, this is what I do.
Heavy.
Meanwhile, back at the Genius Hotel, 5 stars but all rooms are vacant. Meanwhile, I can hear alarm bells outside, they're losing their patience. Meanwhile, back at the Genius Hotel, 5 stars but all rooms are vacant. Meanwhile, I can hear alarm bells outside, they're losing their patience. And I'm a tempest in a teapot. I am King Arthur in Camelot, connected to the hot spot. For 8 days on the trot, fighting the trolls and the bots. Students! You won't say nothing but a nuisance. You're either good or you are evil. You play it quick and there's no sequel, and that's the will of the people. Meanwhile, back at the Genius Hotel, 5 stars but all rooms are vacant. Meanwhile, I can hear alarm bells outside, they're losing their patience. Meanwhile, back at the Genius Hotel, 5 stars but all rooms see disco. Meanwhile, back at the Gina's Hotel, 5 stars for more rooms and bacon. Meanwhile, I can hear alarm bells outside, they're losing their patience. Meanwhile, da 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 da. Da 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 da. If love is blind, hatred is death. I will be.
A lot of the time, fans seem to come up to us and say like, "Oh, I wasn't part of this world. I didn't listen to this kind of music, or like I've never been to a gig before, but I somehow discovered you, like through some random series of events, and now you're my favorite band ever." So it seems to be people from sort of all walks of life, really. Like I've heard from a lot of people that they emotionally like rely on our music and our live shows for their mental health. It makes me feel like we're doing something worthwhile, really.
Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but like I think the majority of the time it's just like you feel a sense of empowerment that you want to then transmit back to them almost, you know. All I take from it is it's just such a joy, you know, because you get to meet so many different people doing so many different things from different walks of life, and you immediately have a connection. You know, like we're the biggest fans of our music. We write music that we love, like, and so when someone has an equal love for the music, it's just, oh, okay, well, I immediately feel like pretty close to you. Let's talk. I never want to be just like, you know, offering hope for hope's sake or just like false positivity. You know, this music is so full of just like the worst platitudes, you know, like you can do everything and all this kind of like just balmy, nothing statement. So yeah, well, I try and make music that's just realistic rather than optimistic or pessimistic.
So I think that something about us that is positive and negative is that we are very non-confrontational people. We don't even like to have confrontation, even with each other. Like even when it's not even going to be confrontation, even when someone's like, I don't really like that idea, everyone like cringes. I don't know if it's like an English thing or like what, but everyone's like, oh no, like when people are putting forward ideas and we'll all like work on them, but like we kind of know if it's not working, if it sort of fizzles out. There's never like, no, I don't like that. So,
I think in terms of the creative process, that's a good thing because it means that we go down a road, even if we're not all willing to go down that road. And sometimes actually something comes out of it we're all happy with.
Yeah, that is.
But like in other aspects of life, obviously it's not a great thing to be completely confrontation averse. but yeah, we're learning, aren't we?
us now. One last kiss, and this kiss for the whole world.
I think it takes a lot of, I suppose, like awareness. It sounds a bit crass, but like trying to be in touch with a kind of broad perspective, you know, like a bird's eye view of like what society is and what direction civilization is going. And you kind of have to balance that with offering people like a sense of hope that's like activating, that feeling of making people feel empowered. Like that's become really central, especially with this last album. It's one of like the central themes. Like Goldfish is all about power dynamics and how the status quo and those that benefit from the status quo want us to feel powerless, because then we're inactive, we become nihilists, we become selfish, we just look after ourselves. And that's exactly the wrong position that we need to be in if we want to have any future as a species. It becomes something that I feel is like pivotal, that the music should feel empowering, and it should feel like it unites us and reminds us of our shared environment, our shared vulnerability, everything that connects us. And I think it's just reinforced the unifying aspect. Like we want our shows to be our own space where it's like, hopefully it's like a microcosm of what society should be.